Thank you, listeners, for joining us for our radio show today here on Elko Live on KELK. It is always such a blessing and a great pleasure to welcome our guest in studio today. And I don't use the word blessing lightly, Billy. Billie Jean Crawford, of course, is the person that we love, that we turn to in times of joy and in times of grief. And she's really the glue that holds the community together. She and her volunteers with Horizon Hospice, Billy. So thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Lori, once again for having me. I'm excited to be here on this crisp day. It's a little chilly, but fall's here. People, fall's here.
We are in for it. And November is National Hospice Month, so this is a perfect time to kind of regroup and talk about the goals and the mission of our very own Horizon Hospice, which is unique, not only locally, but statewide and certainly nationwide.
It is very unique. We have a very wonderful little gem in our community, which is Horizon Hospice, which does a lot of the end-of-life care guiding, helping families through one of the hardest times that they will go through. Not doing the skilled nursing care, but we come right alongside those skilled people and provide the guidance, which is very important, and a volunteer that just gives out of their heart. And I just think that's a beautiful thing.
In fact, you spend the year generally sort of recruiting volunteers, and sometimes it's about educating people as to what that journey might really be like and how different it is for each family.
It is. It's about that letting go process. We talk about it at the hospice about it's not the person giving up by any means. It's just a letting go. I always say that they're getting ready to go to their next journey, and just to walk the families and the person that's at the end of their life is such a sacred, beautiful time. I can't imagine doing anything else anywhere in the world. I love our community here. I love that we have this little community hospice, and I say little, but it's really not little in its value. And we just love our volunteers, and we need volunteers all the time. They're just the key and the heart to hospice.
The reach and the impact of our very own Horizon Hospice, which is decades in its origin.
Yeah, 36 years now, going strong in our community as a nonprofit. And that's due to how beautiful our community and generous our community is. And that's what keeps us running, is those donations, those gifts that people give to Horizon Hospice to able us to have this. Like I said, it's a beautiful little gem. I have even people calling from out of state saying, Billy, can you talk to this family? We have hospice, but we don't have a guide in here. Would you mind speaking to this family member? So I think it's pretty cool to get that even from other communities and even out of state. I got one from, it was a family member, but she reached out to me this weekend and said, Billy, this family's in Arizona and I know them and they're struggling and the daughter doesn't really know what to expect, and would you mind giving them a call? And I'm like, absolutely. So it's really, it's just amazing what we have here to offer in our community.
Oh, the tenderness of Horizon Hospice and how we can help support and give back even at a time when hospice is in need, certainly, and families are in need, maybe even leading up to the day when we'll be in need. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's one thing I think, we're a society that doesn't really like to speak about death or dying. It's very difficult, and I understand that. There's a kind of a buzzword in the palliative care for the dying, and it's called a good death. And I'm always like, let's not really use that term, because if you're losing someone that you love so much, it's not going to feel good. It's not. And we're here through that, and also after, where we provide our grief newsletter. I'm a grief coach, which sounds really weird, but I'm a certified grief coach, so I do one-on-one grieving, and we also have our grief groups, and we don't charge for that, and that's because of this beautiful, generous community.
Right. This group was founded by all volunteers, some of them professionals in the medical community, but they made sure that the seeds were planted for this forest of trees that we have now that needs to be maintained.
It does. And donations are down a bit this year. We have an investment fund that we've put into, so we're fine, but donations are down. So if you feel in your heart you'd like to give a donation, we can accept that. If you feel in your heart you'd like to give some time, we always can use some extra hands at hospice for sure.
Horizon Hospice is a group of volunteers. It's a nonprofit organization. There is a board of directors, and some folks are professionals, as we just described, and others are just, well, people who want to help their neighbors.
Absolutely. We have a beautiful board. It's a very diverse board. We have a whole gamut we have some doctors and we have some business professionals, and we're very lucky. Our board is beautiful, and in fact, Dr. Hogel's on our board, and I think he was one of the founders, I believe. He's been there for a long time, and so it's a very good, solid board. We're very blessed.
Billy Crawford is the director of Horizon Hospice in our community, and she is our guest today as we're talking about November, National Hospice Month, how we can help support hospice in our community, and how we can direct people who are in need. We're going to talk about the hospice, the grief center coming up. Some news, though, in that you have been chosen and are grateful to be so as one of the Festival of Trees recipients.
I know. I'm so excited about that. It's incredible. It's such a fun event anyway, and to be part of that and to get the proceeds from part of that and just to be there and connect with people is really what it's all about. So I'm very excited. We're planning our tree. Haven't come up with anything yet, but we're planning our tree.
Oh, and in the past, you've had some gorgeous trees, Billy. And whether or not you're a recipient, Horizon Hospice has always been right there to help support our charity partners.
Absolutely. We have either had a tree or a wreath or something in the Festival of Trees every year. And like I said, it's just such a great, fun community event.
So that leads us to another important topic. Not everybody feels festive all the time during the holidays. There's a lot to ride the wave and to get you through. Some people mask feelings of grief or symptoms of depression or mental illness, by using substances, even sugar, is a way to get through.
Absolutely, and that's a good point, Lori. Where I can be caught up in the Christmas festival and the wrapping and the glitter, and oh my gosh, I don't think there's anyone that loves Christmas more than I do. But with that being said, we always want to keep in mind that for someone that's grieving, that can be a really hard time. And I always want to think about everyone's story and everybody you approach. It might not be a joyous time. It might be a very difficult time. They may be really missing someone that they love at that time. Even Thanksgiving, Halloween, all of those holidays, all of those firsts definitely can be so difficult. And so if we can just remember that and be kind and offer a smile or a hug or anything for those people that are going through the grieving process and just missing somebody that they love. I know that my father died when I was 8, and it was his most favorite time of the year. So I still can have a little twinge and missing him around the holidays. So I always try to remind myself and remind people that this can be a hard time. And then I tell families to get through it however you can. Do something new, have a different tradition, or if you don't want to celebrate at all, that's okay. Whatever you need to get through it and to be prepared that it might be a hard day.
And Billy, that's a really good point, because Horizon Hospice provides this compassionate support to both the individual who is nearing end of life and the family that surrounds them or helps to create a family in that period of time. You're addressing physical, psychosocial, and the spiritual aspect, but it doesn't have to mean a certain religion. It's not a program that you're prescribing.
No, it's not a religion. It's not a specific. We're open to anyone, no matter where they come from, what spiritual beliefs they have, what cultural beliefs. We like to come with empty hands just to be there for those families and those people that are dying.
But you can help families or people in the same instance to connect with the Elko religious community if necessary.
Absolutely. Their spiritual walk is their spiritual walk, and if they need connected in our community with a certain spiritual leader or whatever that looks, we're going to try our best to connect them with that, because it's not our journey, it's their journey. And that's where we train our volunteers to go in empty-handed. And a lot of our volunteers, of course, have their own spiritual beliefs. I have mine, but it's not the time or the place to offer that unless they ask. We just really are big on meeting those families and those dying individuals right where they're at.
Of course, Billie Jean Crawford, the Executive Director of Horizon Hospice, and this is a program that's tailored individually. So that means, as you described, you meet them wherever they are on the path. You actually design a support system that works.
Absolutely. I'll go in and do what I call as the intake, and it's a pretty some pretty good questions with the person that's dying. And then to find out where their needs are, where you're at spiritually from 0 to 10, where are you at? What's your biggest concern? All of those things we talk about. And then if they choose they would like some help in those areas, then we move forward with that.
You and your loved ones participate in the decisions about care, and this is another important aspect of Horizon Hospice. It's an action, it's not a place.
It isn't. We have a beautiful place for the Horizon Center for people to come to grieve, but Horizon Hospice is really a philosophy. It's really a mindset of meeting those people in their home or in the manor or in the hospital, wherever they might be that need that guidance. Sometimes I think, you think about the sickest you've ever been in your life, is minute from what a lot of our dying individuals are going through. And where would you want to be? I would want to be in my own home, in my own bed, surrounded by my loved ones and my puppies. And that's truly where I would want to be.
And that is certainly possible, and that is really the path. If you're on that path, your loved one, your family member, that you can continue that path with Horizon Hospice support.
Absolutely. And then if for some reason, because that's my wish, that's what I would want, that doesn't always work out for families or individuals. And so I don't want to take that away. We can go in the manor, we can go to the hospital and surround them around comfort and people that love and care about them.
And as we've been talking about, all of this time and either space or comfort, whatever the person prefers, this is provided as a nonprofit organization, and you're not charging for any of these services.
We are not charging, and we don't bill insurance. It's our mission that we come in and we do this with our volunteers out of the kindness of their heart. And we don't want to take away someone's choice. And I think that's big. Sometimes if insurances are involved or they have to go by those guidelines, and that's okay. They're all hospices are beautiful in one way, but we really want that person that's dying to really have their choice and really guide their end-of-life journey.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the word palliative, correct? Mm-hmm. So that's different, say, than more of a clinical approach?
Palliative is, Medicare hospices do palliative care, which is symptom management and pain management for the end-of-life process when we're not at the very end. So we do, honestly, we are really truly end-of-life care. That is where we put our time and our talents, is that end-of-life care.
And of course, volunteers, as you mentioned, you're only as strong as your volunteers. And you have volunteers in just about every corner of the county and in some places beyond. Yeah,
we do. We're lacking on a few. So if you hear this and you feel a tug at your heart, pick up the phone and give us a call, and we'll keep you busy.
775-778-0612 is that number, and we will repeat it throughout the program as well. Volunteers, donations, grants, endowments, and memorials are also important to your plan and the legacy of Horizon Hospice.
And that is very important, and that's something I've kept my eye on quite well. When I'm long gone, I want our hospice, our Horizon Hospice, to keep helping people. I think that's so important. And one of our visions is to be a good, strong nonprofit that will be here, like I said, long before I'm gone. So when I need it, they're going to be here.
So, of course, centering on the patient, and we're going to talk more too about the peer support groups and ways to support families. But there are also several aspects of Horizon Hospice that maybe listeners weren't aware. You can help provide effective pain control and symptom management, even for the uninsured, as you mentioned.
Yeah, so we have our uninsured program, and we've had this for quite some years, where it pays for pain medication, comfort medication, comfort supplies, durable medical equipment if needed, because some of those things are hard to come up with, and we want to make sure that if they're in home and they're dying, they have everything that they need. And that's very important. Pain medication can be very expensive, and that equipment can be hard to find. So just guiding the families with, we have this program. If you need it, we'll supply whatever you need. We don't supply it. We work with the doctor or the nurse and the pharmacist, but we pay for it.
Yep, you come up with it. Yes,
Yes.
definitely. And that leads us to something that's new in the compassionate care program. This really exhibits a lot of confidence from the community that you're able to afford the compassionate care.
Well, we've stepped out, right? And we've decided that with our mission of giving people a choice, they should have a choice of who they want to use for. So sometimes when it's end of life, we feel like it's not very clinical, but that's true. But some families need that, and it takes a team, and I don't like to be the only entity in there. So we've decided to come up with this compassionate care program that pays for end of life nursing care. So we can pay for a nurse to come in and a CNA when they can no longer care for themselves. It's not 24-hour care, absolutely not, but it's a big program, and we just rolled it out. It's been in effect for about close to a year now. We've had 11 different individuals on that, which doesn't sound like a lot, but we kind of rolled it out quietly so we could kind of get our feet wet and see how it was going to be received. And I think it's going to be another beautiful part of hospice we can offer.
Right. It supports that physical state where someone is, or the family. Not every family member is comfortable with the actual nursing aspect of taking care of a loved one. There's bathing sometimes, and helping them, with food and just any number of issues a nurse could also help with.
Absolutely. And we like to take as many of those jobs off of the loved ones as possible. This is what I always say. So a caregiver's role gets pushed up to the front. So if, for example, a wife is caring for a husband at the end of life, her caregiver role gets pushed to the front. And is what we like to do is try to relieve part of that pressure, or part of those jobs, those hats taken away from the caregiver, so that they can just be present and be that wife to that husband, because that is one of the key beautiful things about being present in it with someone at the end of life. Less is more sometimes.
Right. And you didn't have to run to the grocery store. You had helpers. You had volunteers.
Volunteers, yes, that come in and will do shopping errands, a little light housekeeping. Sometimes they just sit with someone and hold their hand, or just visit with them while the caregiver gets a nap or a shower or a walk. So really, it sounds scary for people to become a hospice volunteer, but really, it will guide you through. So if you feel any need, any twinge on your heart that you want to become a volunteer, just give us a call, and I promise we'll guide you through, and it will be okay.
Yeah, and over the years that we've been doing this, Billy, and of all the conversations we've had, and with the huge event, the Super Bowl, that is just packed, it sells out every year at the convention center, people talk about how enriching it is to become a hospice volunteer, what it gives to them in meaning and fulfillment in their own lives.
It does. I couldn't imagine doing anything else. And I started as a volunteer in 98. I think I started as a volunteer. And it has been the most wonderful journey. I have learned more about myself and my life and just being present, which I think in this day and age where we're so busy and we're on the go and we're on the phone and we're on the computer, that sometimes we forget about just being present and just looking at the person and just listening is huge. And so I am very grateful for where I am. And a lot of that is hospice.
Billie Jean Crawford is our guest today as we're talking about our very own Horizon Hospice in our community. One more topic, and that is helping loved ones resolve life-limiting issues. You're a good person to talk to about something that people may not even know how to describe what they're feeling.
Absolutely, and that's why we do the support group, and I do one-on-one grief coaching. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I just do grief work because it's really important. Sometimes I'll just meet one time with a person and they're like, oh, okay, that seems normal, or what is normal, right? We say there's no real wrong way to grieve unless you're doing drugs or alcohol, of course, but everybody grieves differently. It's very unique. It's as unique as your relationships on this earth. That's how unique it is. So I always say to our volunteers and our people that are working in the grief center, because people will all the time say, Lori, I know your mom died. My mom died too. I know exactly how you feel. But we don't, because your relationship with your mom was your relationship with your mom, the same as mine. It's not the same. It's unique. And that's where grief is so difficult. It is such a unique process. It's not a problem. People think, I'm grieving, I have this problem. No, it's a process that you're going through, and it's necessary and it's needed, and it's as natural as breathing.
Let's talk about the Horizon Center then. As you mentioned, you do have a suite up in the terrace up there just off Lamoille Highway.
Yep, it's 413. It's a suite, and we have rooms for the teens to meet. We have a room for the middles to meet, and we have a room for the tiny little ones to meet. And someone said, well, if they're toddlers, can they grieve? Well, if you're old enough to love, you're old enough to grieve. They grieve differently. Kids grieve differently than adults. Men grieve differently than women. We all grieve differently. And so we've provided this safe space where they can come and they can remember their loved ones and they can talk about it. The kids usually have some sort of a activity we do. We serve snacks. And so if that's one of your, really one of your gifts is planning snacks, we could always use help with that. I'm usually running out at the last minute to the grocery store, figuring out what we can serve these people that are coming to our grief group. And then the adults meet too. It is absolutely a beautiful, safe space.
And if you would like to be involved in the groups, and another thing that we've talked about over time, Billie, is that there's really no timeline or time limit for grieving.
There isn't. A lot of times people will say, oh, this year mark. Well, sometimes, a lot of times your brain is just now really processing and kind of reconciling what happened. And so there's no magic year. You will learn for it to fit your heart differently, but you carry grief for a long time.
And as you mentioned, you're certified. You have special training as a grief coach.
Yeah, I did that as well as an end-of-life doula, which sounds funny, but that's exactly what I do. Now I have a name, you call it. And I became certified and accredited in that end-of-life doula also. I think education is very important, especially in end-of-life care. You can never learn enough, I think.
And, of course, helping children and family members through the process of losing a loved one, because death being so complicated, as you said, it's difficult for someone who is nearing end of life and is aware of that. But then there's the sudden, tragic loss of death.
Yeah, and people ask me all the time, Billie, do you think that's easier? And you can't compare. You just really cannot compare. If it's it's just not easy to lose someone you love, whether that's tragic and fast or whether that's through the process of a terminal illness. There's just no comparison.
And so the services of the Horizon Center do include these support groups, if you wanted to talk about those.
Yes, so the support group, we meet every first and third Tuesday of the month from 6 to 7. We're really good about keeping that time because people are busy and grief is hard. And so you could sit in that group for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and then the next time people aren't going to want to come because it takes so much out of you. So we do have this beautiful support group. We have facilitators that are trained that sit in. Usually I sit in with the little kids, and that's a lot of fun. We have two adults that facilitate our adult group, and they've been doing it for quite some time. And it's 6 to 7, Suite 413, 1250 Lemoyle Highway, the first and third Tuesday of the month. Sometimes the third Tuesday falls off because of holidays, but we're normally meeting twice a month. No cost.
At no cost. I was just going to say, and you can drop in, as you said.
Absolutely. You don't have to be scheduled to come because grief will hit you differently. You could have come to the grief group prior and then dropped off for a year or months or days or weeks, whatever, and come back. It's really a roller coaster ride, and if people are grieving, they know how that feels.
And you do have a lot of collaborators in the community, Billy, right? So if someone is coming to grief group and you think maybe they need something more, you know who to reach out to.
Absolutely. And the same with meeting one-on-one with someone during grief work. If they need something else, then we're going to find them.
So don't hesitate if you're simply not yourself, or you want to help a loved one, or your family is continuing to grieve. You might just find the connecting pieces through Horizon Hospice.
Absolutely.
It might not be the end-all, be-all.
It probably won't be, but we're going to find you different agencies. We have such a glorious community here. We have so many nonprofits, and we get passionate about our nonprofit, but man, we have some great agencies, some wonderful people in our community that we're connected with and we work with.
There's certainly an expansion of, or at least an effort to expand our mental health and wellness, Billy. This is a big part of this.
It is a big part of that, and it's very important. Mental health is a huge issue in any community, and I'm glad to see us some things happening in our community to bring awareness to that.
And Billy, would you say Horizon Hospice is equipped to deal with all of this tragic loss that we've had from suicide?
Yes, I do. I do feel strong that yes, we can help with that. So if you're hearing this on the radio and you are connected with some of the tragedies that have happened in our community recently or past, just reach out and give us a phone call. We can certainly help.
In fact, grieving, as we talked about, is such a personal and individual experience or journey. You may not even realize that you're going through this. It can surface at any time. As Billy mentioned, reaching out for masking, whether it's alcohol or drugs, that's certainly not the right solution, even though it could be popularized, in TV or movies, or that's not healthy.
Well, it's not, because you have to feel that grief. It has to come up. And so if you're always stuffing it down or always masking it with something, whatever that may be, it's going to find you. Grief will find you. It will find you in the middle of the night. It will find you at the grocery store. It will find you. So you really need that to come up and to be sad. We live in a society, I think, that we don't like to be sad. Like, we don't even have funerals anymore. We have celebrations of life, which is fine and it's beautiful. A celebration of life is beautiful, but it's okay to feel sad, to cry. We've lost someone that we really miss, and so I think that is just a necessary process.
Horizon Center is part of the Horizon Hospice mission, and it's right here in our community. And if someone listening says, well, I know that I need some support, maybe the peer support group isn't for me because I'm private, you do have a lending library. We do have a lending library and a good, we also have this beautiful newsletter that goes out once a month for a whole year, and it follows the person for a whole year. There's no charge. You can have it sent to your relatives. You can have it sent to yourself. We have one for kids also. So yes, if the grief support group doesn't sound like a fit for you, we have beautiful resources. I can meet with you one-on-one also. Oh, that is so kind of you, Billy. Yes. Because sometimes people do just need that little conversation, either in passing or maybe to sit down and have a little greater talk.
Part of how grief comes out is through mourning. So grief is how you feel internally, and mourning is how you bring it out. Back in the day, we used to wear black armbands, and people would stop you and say, "Oh, I see you have a black arm. You lost someone. Tell me your story." So then the more you tell it, the more it comes out. That's so healing and it's so beautiful. And I think that's part of what we've lost in the culture. I went to a grief seminar, and I came back with little pins that said "under construction." And I have one gentleman that came to group, and he still wears his pin that says "under construction." And that's exactly what grief is. You're trying to figure out who you are without that person physically being in your life. And so that's a huge process. Part of that process is to try to connect with that person. That love has to go somewhere. And so I think that is a beautiful statement, that love has to go somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And that we're all under construction at one point or another. Yeah.
Every day.
Yes. Oh. Well, Billy, I know we've covered a lot of different topics today, and November happens to be National Hospice Month, which means we're generating awareness and support, hoping to recruit more volunteers to the effort, just reminding people to be tender during the holidays, in addition to being joyous, but to also remember those who are grieving.
I think that's very important. Like I said, going through this season of being so busy, right? But remember, you can see if we're present and we're really looking into our community, we can see different stories at different places. And to be there and available for someone that may just need a shoulder or may just need to talk about their loved one. That's another thing in our society, is that we don't want to mention that person that's died to the person that's grieving, but they think about them every day. So it's okay, say their name, talk about them, tell stories. Remember, if you have a special memory of someone that's died and you want to share it with that person that's kind of grieving, do it. It's very healthy. It's very comforting. You know, I think if my mom passed, I love to hear stories. When my father died, it was in the day and age where you packed up his stuff and shipped it away, and we didn't share stories. And it's sad because I lost a lot of memories, and I wish we could get those back.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that might be a nice time during the holidays to remember loved ones. I know just what you're talking about. Anytime I run across someone, and my mom's been gone for a long time, Billy, and you were there for me when she passed, but it doesn't lessen, as you said, the loss. It may change over time, and you have different places that you can reflect either your loss or your love, what it might be. But anytime I run across someone who says, "Oh, I remember your mom," I just light up and say, "Oh, tell me, what is it you remember about her?" Because it's like she continues to live in those little moments.
In those little moments, that's very important. And it's even for kids to be able to talk about their parents, or maybe it was a sibling that died. That's very important, and is what we've provided at the Horizon Center, is a safe place for everybody to come and talk about their loved one that's died. Because you can have that in the home, but mom might go behind closed doors to grieve, and the kids might go behind closed doors to grieve because they don't want to hurt each other, right? They're having a good day. I don't want to disrupt their good day. And that's what is the biggest part of the peer support group, is just that safe place to laugh and to cry and to remember the people that were there for them.
Our community hospice is Horizon Hospice, a 501c3 nonprofit. There are no fees for any of the services we've been talking about. They receive no funding. They depend on volunteers, donations, grants, endowments, and memorials. And this is the time of year where you can make that care and support known. The best way to reach you, I guess, would be to drop by or to give you a call.
Yeah. Our phone number is 775-778-0612. We're always open for calls and even stopping by. Sometimes you won't catch me. I'm usually in doing my work. But we have a beautiful Angie who mans our office from 9 to 2 every day. You can always pop in and say hi to her also.
And of course, they're located at 1250 Lamoille Highway, Suite 413. Did we get to most of what you were hoping to today?
I think we did, Lori. I always enjoy coming to speak with you. You make this so easy, so I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you so much for making all of our lives that much brighter. And I know you have work to do because you have lots of visits and people that you see and,
Yes.
and people that you help. So thank you, Billy.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you, listeners, for joining us for another edition of Elko Live today. We appreciate our guest, Billie Jean Crawford, who is the director of Horizon Hospice in our community. You too can help the effort by becoming a volunteer, by making a donation, by recommending someone to the Hospice Center if you think they could use a little extra help, especially during this holiday season. Thank you for joining us for our radio show today.